In this video, I'm going to walk you through all of your account settings. Make sure to like this video, comment if you have questions, and subscribe to my channel so you never miss anything new. The first thing you need to do is go to your sub account, which can be accessed by clicking this button here, and then you should land on that launch pad. We want to click on the settings button in the bottom left. It is possible that when you watch this video, it could be in a slightly different place, but typically it's always going to be around the left-hand sidebar, and there should be that settings wheel. So we're going to go ahead and click on settings, and that is going to open us up into the business info section. Business info will be used to autofill certain information that you might utilize in the future using the custom values feature. So do make sure that this business info is actually your best business information. So what email address would you want your signature to have on it if it is a business focused email? What phone number is that best phone number for your business? Obviously, your website should be your website, and then you can pick a niche here. You do not have to do this, but this is something that you can do. You also want to have your company address and your time zone, which is very important. Over here, we have general, which is going to say allow duplicate contact or opportunity, merge Facebook contacts by name, disable contact time zone, mark emails as invalid due to hard bounce, and validate phone numbers when contact is created. The only two that I encourage you to check off or consider checking off are these two right here. They are optional. I do like to allow Facebook contacts, which would be somebody who has sent your company a Facebook message, to merge those people by name. So if you already have that person in your system, but you don't have their Facebook profile connected, if it believes that this is the same person, it will merge them as a contact. So this is one that I definitely recommend. Validate phone numbers when contact is created. So they're going to try and validate this when that very first call or text is made. Everything else I don't suggest that you check off, but obviously this is something that you can make your own decisions as a business owner as long as you understand what these things are doing. There will be a little question mark on anything that they believe needs further explanation. We also have enable or disable depreciated features. So campaigns and triggers were originally how you would do automations or automated conversations in this system. We are no longer going to have access to those features. They are being phased out. Some people may not have those options at all. And very soon, this likely won't even be present on the dashboard. I don't believe that you need to have these checked off unless for some reason the snapshot that you are trying to utilize was created in campaigns and triggers. At this point, pretty much everything should be converted over to workflows, which is what we now use in place of campaigns and triggers. So this is also optional, but I do not think that it's necessary unless you have a specific reason to check those off. We also have missed call text back. So this is a really great, simple feature to set up. This is going to allow any missed calls to get a text back and really just direct them in whatever that best next step might be. So you might say something very similar to this, or you could say, hey, I am on the line with another client. I'd love to speak with you. If you want to schedule a time, that would be great. Here's my calendar link. So that can be a really good missed call text back as well. You're then going to save those missed call settings, or you can also test what that would look like by sending it to yourself. We also have call and voicemail settings here. So this is going to be your company's, or even, well, really it should be for the company as a whole, your default voicemail that you will have connected to your Twilio phone numbers that are set up through this system. So I definitely encourage you to use this. You can record your MP3 or your WAV file on really any audio recorder. There are plenty of apps out there that you could download to your phone, record that voicemail, and then share it to your computer to upload here. So that's what this is going to be used for. Now let's take a look at My Staff. My Staff is where you are going to add your employees or your team members who you want to give access to this system. I am going to talk you through some of the different options we have available for the employees or the My Staff section and what you need to consider when determining how you want to give someone access. The first tab we'll look at is the User Info tab. If you put a phone number in a user profile, it's important to know that if a lead or a contact is assigned to that person, if that person were to call the company, maybe it's through the text message that they've received, or it could be just through your default outbound number, this is going to redirect to this phone number that you have in here. So if you do not want individual users to have their phone number as that end destination phone number that somebody might potentially reach, you can leave this blank. If you are a salesperson and you want to make sure that if one of your leads is calling that it forwards to your cell phone, that's great. Go ahead and put that phone number in here. Your password is obviously self-explanatory, and then you can enable signature on all outgoing messages. This is often something that people want to do. It makes their emails look more professional and as if it was coming from their typical email account. We also have include this signature before quoted text in replies. That would mean that if you are replying through the email, that it sends another one of your signatures attached to that email. If you have a calendar that is going to be assigned to you or to a specific team member, this is where you can essentially attach that individual calendar to this individual user. So you would be able to use something like the user calendar custom value to be able to pull in that link for specific communications. Now we're looking at the user permissions tab. This is what will this person see inside of the account. If you click on this only assigned data tab, which is the only one that is off by default, that means that if someone is not assigned to something inside of this account, that they will not see it. And that especially means leads and clients. This is something that you can utilize for salespeople if potentially you only want salespeople to have access to certain people throughout the system. So if they were looking at calendars, they would only see people in calendars, no matter what calendar they are looking at, of leads or clients that are assigned to them specifically. Or in call reporting, only people who are assigned to them would show up there. So I do think that for salespeople, it can be a really good feature to have turned on, especially if there is competition between different salespeople and they'd be not as inclined potentially to work together in terms of trying to help each other out with lead communication. So I would hope that people would want to help each other out regardless, but that is one thing to consider. If you have only assigned data turned on, that in the conversations tab, they would only see conversations with people who are assigned to them. So let's say there's an important conversation from another person's lead or another person's client, they wouldn't see it. So if somebody was not able to see that message quickly and they were the only person that was there to see it, would you want them to be able to help out and respond to that, or would you want them to not see that at all? So that is probably the biggest consideration I would say on this screen. Everything else is somewhat self-explanatory. If you have it on, they can see this feature and what it entails, and if they have it turned off, then they cannot. If someone is listed as a user and not an admin, and we'll talk about that in just a second, then they would have different permissions within these features, but they would still see and have access to the features. Obviously, with campaigns, it says read only, but as campaigns is being phased out, we probably won't even see this on the dashboard pretty soon, and so that won't matter. but Workflows has the read-only option. And what that means is they can see everything, but they cannot edit the contents of, let's say, emails or text messages or edit those workflows. Workflows are probably the most important area to have as read-only for certain users because this is a very big part of your system. It's going to be your automations and your communications. And if someone is not very confident in utilizing these, or they don't understand exactly what the implications of their actions might be, it could be best for them to have read-only access so that they don't accidentally mess something up. User roles, we've got admin versus user. So I am the admin on this account. There's no other users, so there is only one admin option. But if you were to select user, there are things that they cannot do within these features, as I mentioned, such as deleting things or deleting contacts. So I think that's definitely for the best. They also may not have the ability to export certain things or to create snapshots or to navigate to the agency view, etc. So I do think anyone who is not the business owner or a high-level manager who will need access to all of those things, they should be set as a user. And as long as they have all these toggles turned on, they can still access the system as a whole. If you find you run into a situation in which, hey, this person constantly needs me to update admin access or do something for them, you should maybe consider, do I trust this person? And would it be better if I turned on admin access? But I think it's a good second step, not a good first step. This is where we're going to have a specific voicemail for this person. So if we have certain Twilio numbers, which we'll talk about in the Twilio section and the phone number section, if that's assigned to me, then if somebody calls, I don't want it to go to the company phone and get the company voicemail that I have set up. I want it to go to my phone or get my custom voicemail. So this would be a custom individual voicemail. For user availability, we can connect Zoom. If you use Zoom for your Zoom meetings, go ahead and connect Zoom. It will give you access to additional features. It'll make sure that your Zoom links are up to date for your different leads and customers that will be using that. And then Google Meet is another option if that's what you use. If you have a single link for Zoom, you could just plug in the meeting location there. Or if you have a custom domain for your Zoom room or something that you want people to see, you can still plug that meeting location in there. And if it's a personal address of maybe an office where if you're meeting with this person on their calendar, this is where you'd be meeting them, you can plug that in here. But again, this is user specific. And so this should be a personal link for that specific user or a personal location. Otherwise, you can just set that up in the calendars themselves. Then we have their specific time zone and their available hours for the calendars. So you can still set calendar availability inside of a calendar, but if I'm only saying that I'm available Monday through Friday, it will always have Saturday and Sunday blocked out for me on that calendar because your user settings typically will always override the settings of the other feature that you would be able to set that up in. User calendar configuration is here. So if I have a Google Calendar associated with me or integrated, which I do not have in this account currently, I would be able to make sure that I see that and I'm able to edit the settings, the read and write settings. But if I don't see it, it tells me that I need to have this integrated and that if this person is going to be taking calendar appointments, this is a step I need to do. That is really it with our team management. We also have the Add Employees button. I will quickly go over the Teams tab. There will be a separate video on Teams and team calendars, so I'm not going to have time to go through that in this specific video, but Teams would be, like it sounds, a team. You need to create a team if you plan on having a team calendar. So let's say you have a sales team. Maybe it's regional. Create that regional sales team's team. Maybe it's an installation team versus a design team. You can put people on teams. Those people will be able to be on individual calendars together and you will be able to create calendars for them. So if you do have any type of team within your business, that is an important aspect. Now we'll take a look at pipelines. Pipelines will be for your CRM. Most people are familiar with what pipelines are. but we'll quickly go through the basics. This is a specific account that I am in, focusing on a specific functionality, which is the 72-hour cash surge strategy. Because of that, I only put the pipelines and the pipeline stages that relate to that specific strategy. This is something that no matter what you start with, you should be editing and customizing for your specific business, because there is no way that I could predict or the system could predict every possible stage and process within your business. There are too many industries, too many ways that people do business. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're really auditing your own sales process before you go in here and start using the CRM. You want to have a new leads stage. A respondent stage is good. You could have a survey submitted stage. You could have a no-show stage. You could have a canceled needs to reschedule stage. You could have a first call or first appointment completed stage. Then you've got, abandoned cart where it applies, purchased for where it applies. So these stages are pretty limited in terms of what we would normally have within an account, because this is, again, for a very specific strategy. But if this is something that you're actually pulling into your account, you should really take the time to fully set up this pipeline. If you want to have different pipelines, you can create new pipeline. We're going to call this test pipeline, and we can add our stages. So we will have lead, contacted, no response. We'll have not a good time to talk. So you can get very detailed in how you break people down. So contacted, call back, or this could be spoke with, call back. Then we've got a booked intro call maybe. Then we've got no-show intro call. Could have canceled / rescheduled. Then we could have something like first app completed, second app scheduled, closed, lost. There's a lot of different stages you could have in there. So my pipeline has a lot more stages than just this, but that is how you're going to add stages. And some of the stages you might have in a typical start to finish pipeline. If I want to rearrange these, I'm going to move them with the arrows. So I definitely encourage you to do that, especially as you get started and you have workflows attached to these stages. It's way better to just move them than it is to delete or, and then add another stage. The other thing to mention is that if you were editing the name of a stage and it has now a different purpose, make sure there's not a workflow associated with that, because there might be, and then it may be putting people in now a weird and inappropriate stage for that specific business. You can have multiple pipelines. I think it's very important to make sure you only have multiple pipelines if you need multiple pipelines. Ultimately, my pipeline strategy has changed over the years, and I've found that you really just want one, and having to move people over in the future can be a pain, or trying to manage more than one. So maybe you give individual people their own pipeline for organizational standpoint, although that's not a requirement. They'd still be able to sort within one pipeline for their leads. Maybe it's for different strategies. So for example, in our live event account, we've got a traditional sales pipeline, but then we have a live event pipeline. That would be something like registered, confirmed attendance, can't make it, attended event, did not attend event, and booked appointment at event or sold at event. So those are specific to a live event. That is when it could justify having a separate pipeline. Now we have profile settings. Those are, again, specific to the user. This is where I could connect Zoom or Outlook. We do Google Calendars under the integrations tab, not directly in this profiles screen. We already went over those options before, so I'm going to move on to calendars. Calendars is a really, really important feature for a lot of businesses. If you've not been using calendars previously, you might want to consider doing it for the first time. That could mean that you start allowing customers to self-schedule sales appointments. Even if it's by the phone or by Zoom, give people that option. I have ran into way too many businesses that I've started working with that would be perfect to have an option to allow their customer base to self-schedule with them, and they're not even giving them that option. That's actually making life harder for the business owner or the salesperson, because now all of their lead outreach has to be outbound. They can't just have set of times for people to speak with them and then book those slots. So they already know, hey, I'm connecting with this person at this time, and I don't need to worry about reaching out to them or chasing them down because they've already told me when they're available, especially as people are busy throughout the day. If you are using social media advertising, they can respond to those ads at any point during the day, doing a lot of different things. And you can't expect that they'll be available to talk right at that moment. So giving them the ability to go ahead and schedule a time to talk is really, really important. You might also have installation calendars or design appointment calendars. You could have personal calendars. All of these are individual calendars at the end of the day, but they can be for a business purpose. And then you might have some that are named, Allie's personal calendar. And those are really just for me as an individual. If I had created a team, I would see a team calendars option. There is a separate video for that. So right now we're just going to focus on the individual calendars. This means that I can just assign one person to this calendar in terms of having that link, in terms of having it synced to their Google or Outlook calendar availability. So give this an appropriate name. This description will be seen in the calendar invite by the person who books. So this is client facing or customer facing. So this is something you want to pay attention to. Then we have contact name. This is a custom value. This will pull in the contact name. And then I use custom values a lot, but on this one, it says insert business name and insert appointment type. That is something that you would type in the name of your business and the type of appointment, or you could copy and paste additional custom values if you wanted to fill those in. This is where you're going to plug in the meeting location. If this is assigned to a specific person, you don't necessarily have to do this, but this is something that you do want to be very aware of, especially if it's a Zoom call or a physical location. We want to make sure people know where this meeting or appointment takes place. We can say, what color do we want this to be on the calendar? And then if we had Google calendars integrated into this account, I would see a drop down of those right here. One way versus two way and disable trigger. What does that mean? On one-way sync, that means that anything that is booked on the Google calendar will in fact populate, the reverse. Anything that's booked in this system will show up on the Google Calendar. But if it's booked originally in the Google Calendar, it will not show up in this system. Two-way would be if it works in both directions. For most people, one way is what you want. There might also be a smart trigger in there, and that is a great option if you have that available in your account. Then we also have disable trigger. We would click save and it would take us to the availability tab. Our slot duration is the amount of time for this appointment. If you have appointments with different amounts of time, they will need separate calendars. So that is one way to determine how many calendars you need. Different types of appointments also could use different calendars. So if I simply wanted to know very clearly which appointments were for what, maybe it's to talk about different services or products, then I could have different calendars for those, which would be present in different funnels that are focused on those products and services. If I wanted to have a different set of questions that I ask somebody when they're booking on this calendar, or maybe different automations that are associated with that calendar, the communications that you send somebody before and after might be different, you would want to have a separate calendar. And then finally, as I already mentioned, you could have an individual calendar as well. These slot intervals would be how many minutes apart do we see these calendar appointment options. So that could be noon and 12:30 and 1 o'clock and 1:30, etc. We can change that. So however we want them to see the intervals, that's how they can see it. A buffer between appointments means that if I put a 5-minute buffer, it's going to add 5 minutes before and after appointments of this kind. That might be appropriate for your event types, but do note that this is going to reduce the number of available appointments booked, because if the calendar is set for a 1-hour duration, but there's only 55 minutes available, it won't allow a booking in that slot. So that is something to definitely pay attention to. Then we have 1 appointment per slot and how many appointments per day. So if you can have more than 1 appointment per slot, change that. How many do you want per day? If you do not specify, it will just be as many as can fit in that day's calendar. Minimum scheduling notice means how soon in advance can I book an appointment? So if I was booking an appointment today, do you want me to be able to book that for an appointment today? Or would tomorrow be my earliest that I would see on that calendar? That's what 1 day means. If you want someone to book no more than 48 hours in advance, you can put 2 days. Date range is how many days open on the calendar do they see? For a lot of phone or Zoom sales appointments, you probably want to stay at 7 days, maybe even less. The reason being is the farther into the future people set their appointments, the easier it is for them to forget, not show up, or lose steam and excitement about what it is they're talking about. So it's a good idea to keep these within a short window of time if possible. If this is an installation calendar and you can let people choose, up to 3 months in advance, then put 3 months in advance. Whatever is appropriate for your specific calendar is what you should be thinking about. Now we've got the office hours. So these are our standard hours that we're choosing from. If we want to have most accurate availability, this is why you would connect this to a Google Calendar or an Outlook calendar, because we want to make sure that we're not double booking. So you do want to make sure you either manually block out times that you're not available within this system's calendar, or just have it associated with Google or Outlook calendar and use that for your personal life to make sure that if there is something that prevents you or a team member from being able to take an appointment, that you are not even letting somebody choose that at all. It's going to save you a lot of time and confusion. Now, the third tab is the confirmation tab. So we have the ability to not use a custom form on our calendars, which is basically going to be just standard contact information, maybe name, email, and phone number when they are booking. But if I want to ask additional questions or custom questions, then I might want to create a form first or edit the form if it's something that came inside of my account already. Then I could ask them questions that matter to me when someone is booking this appointment. So again, none or select your custom form. The form has to be created first. I do like to let the calendar auto confirm the appointment, and this is where you want to be alerted of a new appointment on this calendar. You also might want to uncheck cancellation. I prefer that people speak with us if they need to cancel, so we can see, is this really just a reschedule? Is this a cancel? If you're canceling, we like to know why. It helps us out a lot. Then allow Google Calendar to send invitation or update emails to attendees. Yes, I would encourage you to check that off. If there are any additional notes that you want to be in their calendar invite, fill them out here. And this is for your Facebook or Meta Pixel ID, and you would want to get that from your ad account. Finally, we have 2 options for form submissions. So how do we want this person to end this calendar booking? Do we just want a thank you message that pops up right there, stays on the same page, or do we want a new page? I typically always encourage that it goes to a new page. You want to give people customized information on what happens next. You might include a video. You might have links to social media channels or places that they can go to get additional information. Hello. So I would say insert thank you page URL, and you do want to make sure that your calendar is set up in your conversions API. Now we are going to hit complete, and move on to the phone numbers tab. Phone numbers tab is the next one in line. When I land on the phone numbers tab, I'm going to see SMS providers, default provider, which is Twilio. The reason that I see this is because this Twilio account has been integrated at the agency account level. If you've not done that, you will not necessarily see that. We do still want to add individual numbers for certain accounts. So I would simply click add number, make sure my country is correct, and then type in the area code that I want this number to come from. It's then going to show me the available phone numbers that I am able to choose from. So I like to pick those with repeating numbers a lot of the time. I think it just makes it easier for people to remember or for your advertising. So it's going to be a $1 monthly fee, and I would hit save. I'm not going to get that one because I don't need it for this account, but that's what you would do. Once you have that, you can hit edit and you can edit those settings. There is a separate video on that as well. Then you also can create number pools. The reputation management tab is going to have certain settings that are focused on your reputation management, such as leave a review link. So we can pull in the Google Business account and we can get that review link. We can send a review request immediately once or follow a custom schedule for review request. When review request button is clicked, this is what will happen. So this does not happen automatically. It happens if someone clicks on the review request button. And then we can customize the review text message. So if we want to add an image, we can. We would need to turn on the image option. And then this is the message that we could send along with that link. We also have the opportunity to customize the email as well and customize those colors. So this is something I would definitely do if you plan on using the reputation management features of the account. Custom fields, they are custom questions that you want to ask and collect answers on. You want to add a custom field anytime you're going to be collecting data that is not default in the account. Single options is them selecting one option from a dropdown. This is probably the most common custom field option, and it's very important to choose the right type of question for the information you're collecting. Single options will allow you to automate things fairly easily, as will radio or checkbox. But single options has the most features available to it when it comes to automation. We also can do signatures, file uploads, text box list, dates, text, which is just text, large text, which is more of a paragraph, numerical, phone, monetary, and then we've covered the others. So those are the options. These will be covered in survey and form videos, but you do need to either create these questions first in order to map them with, say, a Facebook lead form, or you can create them as well inside of the survey and form builder options. Custom values are something that I thoroughly enjoy using. I think they make life so much easier, and they're something that I encourage everybody to really utilize at every opportunity. This account has only a couple of custom values because, again, this is focused on a very specific strategy and functionality. Some of my accounts have dozens of custom values, and it's very dependent on what the purpose of the account is and how many variables might change. This is great to use for anything that could change. What it's going to allow you to do is create something, such as booking page link in this case, and then it will create this key code. Now we can add whatever we want this value to be. So under value, I'm going to put my booking page. And now wherever this value was used, that is the URL that will show up. That would show up in a funnel page or a website page. That would show up in an email or a text message, as long as I had used this code. So any links, any phone numbers, any pieces of information that could change, such as the name of your offer, those I encourage you to use custom values, because they will allow you to update that information really easily without having to scour through your entire account. Sometimes we have things created as custom values, not necessarily because you would have to or because that information would change, but because the people who purchase my accounts or get access to them in my mentorship program or mastermind, they don't have to do as much to edit the copy in their emails, text messages, funnels. They can literally update these custom values and it's going to auto-populate their specific information throughout the entire account. So I use them to make life easier for the people who are utilizing the accounts that I build. Domains is where you will have the ability to connect a domain and where you will see your list of domains. There is a separate video for this, and I'd encourage you to watch that if you need to add a new domain. We also have media, which is media library, URL redirects, and then we will take a look at integrations next. Integrations is going to give you the ability to click on and log into any of these accounts for direct integrations with the automations. There is a separate video on connecting some of these things, but ultimately you click on the button to sign in, you log into the account, and it might have one additional option or drop down for you to select. And some of them, such as Google, will allow you to connect more than one, but you won't see those options until you connect the first one. And it'll just say, add another account. With this right here, you want to make sure that the add account is the one that you want to see the reporting stats for, and that the page is the one that you want to utilize in your automations. So whatever page you select here will be what it uses for the Facebook form fields mapping, which is a tab directly next to the main integrations tab. So if you use Stripe and you want to collect payments, definitely integrate this. If you use Shopify, definitely do it. So anytime you're using any of these features, definitely integrate them. And this will also be the way that your Google business page is connected. So you want to make sure you're signing into the account that is directly tied to that account. Facebook form fields mapping is going to give you the ability to connect your Facebook lead forms. There is a separate video on this, but it is now located under the settings next to the integrations, under the integrations tab. Finally, we will take a look at some of the last options in settings, one of which will be the SMTP and Mailgun services. This is what will be used to deliver the emails to and from within this account. There are additional steps that need to be taken to connect this. So once you do this setup, everything happens within this system. You don't really have to log into your Mailgun account, but it is the process that allows those emails to be delivered back and forth. So you do definitely need to have an SMTP service or Mailgun directly set up in this account, but use the other videos to follow along for that. And tags. This is something that I also use very, very frequently. Almost anytime someone takes an action, I like to tag them, even if I'm not 100% sure if that is a tag that will be critically important in the future. I would rather tag them and then not need it, as opposed to need to be able to sort people in that way and not have that ability. So it's a really great way to, at a glance, see things about people and what they've done without having to go through all of their different activity. It's also a really great, easy way to sort and filter people and create your smart list. So use tags very liberally. You can create them inside of the workflows as you're building those out, or you can create them here. That is all we're going to go through when it comes to your settings. We do have labs, which is new, and audit logs. You can definitely check those out, but there's nothing that I really needed to cover in those today. So hopefully this was extremely helpful when it comes to understanding your settings inside of the account and the things to consider related to them. If you want to get started on Highlevel for the first time, check the link in the description to get a 2-week free trial and some of my special freebies when you use my Highlevel link to get started.